had in general, but everybody's going to kind of delve down into their own perspective of, you know, what the week was like for them too. So before we get there, let's start with prayer. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the day. We're grateful for your prescription of rest and our ability to rest in you. So we just pray that you would be with us this morning as we gather here and as we worship, as we go throughout the day and come back for fellowship tonight, that you'd be present and we'd be blessed by your spirit. Thank you too, Lord, for the break in the weather. Thank you for those clouds yesterday. Pray all these things in Christ's name. All right, so wanted to start with reading Isaiah 55. So take a listen to that.
Come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk, without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me, and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. Incline your ear and come to me, hear, that your soul may live. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love for David. Behold, I made him a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander for the peoples. Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know, and a nation that did not know you shall run to you, because of the Lord your God, and of the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I propose, and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it. For you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall break forth into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress, instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle, and it shall make a name for the Lord, an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off.
Thank you. Hey, I hope you'll hear in a little bit about what we share some ways in which that scripture came alive for us, but we certainly spent some time talking about it while we were there. I do want to begin, though, just by giving you an overview. Some of you are familiar with Isaiah 55. Some of you may not have any familiarity. So I've got a video that they've shared, and then I'll share a little bit more here in just a second. Let's see if we can get it going.
Isaiah 55 Ministries began in 2006, founding a school for the deaf in Reynosa, Mexico. Since that time, the ministry has expanded. However, Isaiah 55 continues to serve the deaf and marginalized people in the border city of Reynosa, those who seek connection and restoration to family, community, and God. Instituto Isaías 55 opened in 2006 and today offers academic instruction for deaf students from preschool through young adult. The school provides language and education to the deaf through a grace-based, gospel-oriented curriculum, teaching with a biblical worldview. We desire to see our students reconciled to Jesus Christ, enabling them and their families to have healthy relationships and communication, as well as provide a practical education through the use of Mexican Sign Language. In addition to academic classes for students, parents and students take classes in sign language, Christian worldview, and daily life issues to learn to better communicate at home and in the world. Recognizing the need for our deaf students to be prepared to enter the larger community, Isaiah 55 offers vocational training at our Centro de Oficios Cerdán. We have the ability to offer classes in sewing, carpentry, electricity, and welding, all taught by Mexican instructors trained in Mexican Sign Language. We also offer the same classes to neighborhood residents. This vocational training teaches work values, discipling in biblical truth, and the potential to develop abilities in manual trades. As part of the vocational program, we have contracted several manufacturing projects which enable us to offer employment opportunities to neighborhood residents. In 2011, the Isaiah 55 ministry offices moved to the Aquiles Sodom neighborhood in Reynosa. The Aquiles Sodom neighborhood is a historically underserved community lying geographically between the red light district and one of the city dumps. Our mission is to see our Aquiles Sodom neighbors, young and old, come to know Jesus. We offer Bible teaching for children, youth, and adults. We seek to improve the educational opportunities for the community through tutoring and other activities. We offer activities for our neighbors in a safe environment where they may gather, including parties to celebrate holidays and special events. Our hope is to develop disciples of Christ and leaders for the local church to grow in this neighborhood. Work teams have been an essential part of the history of Isaiah 55 Ministries. Work teams provide the church an opportunity to engage in and honor the Great Commission. Work teams enable churches to engage in cross-cultural missions, build healthy relationships within their churches, and provide an opportunity to expand the kingdom through serving others outside of their everyday community. Some examples of how teams have served our local communities are by helping with small construction projects in our Reynosa community and at our own Isaiah 55 properties. Short-term medical teams hold clinics around our community. High school and college youth have helped us with Vacation Bible School and other events for children and youth. Along with work teams, we also host college-age students as summer interns. Both work teams and interns are housed and fed at our Isaiah 55 ministry offices in our Aquiles Sodom neighborhood. But everything we do is with the end goal of seeing the local church grow. Isaiah 55 Mexican director Mario Choca also pastors Camino de Fe Church in Reynosa. It is our desire to see a sister church planted in our Aquiles community. There's so much more to learn about Isaiah 55 Ministries. Please contact us to learn more. Find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and at our website, www.isaiah55.org. Thanks for spending a bit of time with us today.
All right. And you can learn more about it today, so y'all are in the right spot. I did want to give you just a little bit of sense of what the week was like from a high level. You saw the various ministries they're in. We got exposed to just about all of those. We left 3 weeks ago yesterday. We rented a van, a 15-passenger van. There were 8 of us, so we threw all our luggage and 8 of us in there and started driving south. The van left Ethan's house about 6:30, picked everybody up, and we went down I-35 almost the whole way. You kind of branch off onto a couple other interstates. But we arrived down in Mission, Texas at about 6:30 p.m., so about 11 hours for us to make our way down there. We had our stops, although Buc-ee's was not among any of them. We passed a few Buc-ee's on the way. The reason we went to Mission is we met up with the gentleman who lives over there, who was our kind of our work team leader. His name was Marcus. And so we left our van at his house, threw everything in their van, and they took us across the border. So our van stayed on the United States side the whole time, and they took us back and forth across the border. So we got there, had dinner Saturday night, a little time for fellowship, a little bit of orientation to the place, and found our bunks. These are concrete block buildings, and they do have air conditioning. It runs at night, thank goodness. And so we had that available to us. We were supposed to be in a group with a fairly large church from Montgomery, Alabama, that was going to be there, that we talked with throughout the year. They ended up not coming. I hadn't heard the full reason for that, but it was just our group and a couple of young ladies from Mexico who were there for different reasons. If we don't talk about them, I'll share about them later. And the interns, and so that was the group for the week. Sunday morning, we wake up, we have worship, we go to Camino de Fe, which is the church that Debbie's Shoka's father, who y'all know is the pastor of. We worshiped with them on Sunday morning, came back for lunch, went to Nuevo Progreso, and went on a little shopping excursion through their market on Sunday afternoon and enjoyed that time together. Came back and had, I'm not sure what we ate that night. The food is a theme from this. Was it pizza night that night?
Yeah.
Good. So that was pizza night. They had a wood-fired oven and make your own pizza. The food was outstanding. And so I don't think it's just because you worked and it felt good to have something to eat at the end of the day, because we didn't work that day and it was still really wonderful. So that was our weekend, and so then we started in the work teams Monday through Thursday were our work days. Work days kind of went this way. They had prayer time at 7 o'clock. I didn't mention they took away our cell phones when we got there, so we had no cell phone activity during the time we're there. It also took away our clocks. So I had my watch, but it does not have an alarm. I think Sarah was the one with the alarm on her watch. So waking up was whenever the Lord woke you up. And sometimes you'd wake up early enough, and I was kind of in the back, so I could kind of tell whether it was light outside or not. If I closed my eyes, I went back to sleep, and if I woke up, I woke up. But 7 o'clock was prayer time, breakfast at 8 o'clock. We'd have a little bit of free time, and we'd gather back around 9 o'clock. We'd have prayer again, and that's when we'd assemble as a work team. And we worked generally from 9 till about noon, had lunch from noon to 1 or 1:30, and then we'd go back to work in the afternoon till about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. So those were our work times. We had something called prayer chair throughout the day, so that was a 30-minute break to have prayer in a nice shaded spot. I think maybe a few of us followed the example of the disciples and fell asleep during that prayer time, but it was certainly a time to spend kind of reflecting on the day and the rest as well. So it was encouraged, I think, for both prayer and rest reasons. We'd come back in the evening. 4:30 was the famed Coke and guacamole break. So every day at 4:30 they had bottled drinks. It was cold Cokes or Diet Cokes and Fantas and all sorts of things. And they made up some wonderful guacamole and chips, and we'd go in and have that for once we got back from break. And have a little free time till dinner at 6 o'clock. There was on 3 of those 4 days, there was a community outreach that they talked about. They had one in the afternoon on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for various groups, and we'll talk more about those. And so we got to participate in those as well, and then come back for dinner. We had free time, usually a program in the evening as well that they would lead, and those were various things. Spanish night was one of them. We learned a little bit more about the mission on another one. I have to think what the other ones were. Somebody else may mention them. We'd have devotionals in the evening, and then we'd hit bed and go to sleep until the next day at 7 o'clock. So that was kind of our work week. Thursday night, we were scheduled to stay there, but the power kept going on and off on Thursday. And so the folks that ran Isaiah 55 were concerned we weren't going to have power, and so they were very gracious. And Thursday, they actually took us over the border early. We were going to go on Friday morning, but we left Thursday night, went across the border, and they put us up in a hotel so we'd have air conditioning. So that allowed us to be comfortable that night and drive home and make it home a little early, but that was very nice. So that was an overview of our week. We'll have a little bit more detail as we go along, and I think the Tarpleys are going to start.
I want to start and just read from Matthew 5 from the Sermon on the Mount. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. This passage kind of reverberated in my mind and heart as we did devotions and as I spent time with the people in Reynosa. I think mostly because I feel like being with them and being with people that have little, is being closer to the blessings of God. And I really felt that. I really felt blessed by the people there. We deeply connected, which was really neat. The way that brothers and sisters can, in the Lord, that have not ever met each other, can connect, and even across language barriers. I think the biggest, one of the highlights for me were the two ladies that were nationals. One was from Tampico, and the other one from Veracruz. And the one from Tampico, her name was Marta, and she is in training medical resident for kidney specialist. So she's really busy, but then she has just a little bit of vacation, and she came and she served here, and she could speak a little bit of English. And then Monsi was the one from Veracruz, and she didn't speak so much English, but she was very friendly, and so Sarah could speak a little bit of Spanish. And so we were in the dorm together, me and Sarah and Monsi and Marta, and kind of developed a friendship. And the whole team developed a friendship with these two ladies. But Sarah and Marta would interpret, and we would, by the end of the week, we were really connected, even though some of our words we didn't understand. But we were both learning each other's, and I've been doing Duolingo, so I'm still learning just a little bit. I know how to say como se dice, and gracias, and sí, and no, and por favor. So that was really a blessing, and I've kept up with them over the last couple weeks online. The next blessing would be the team of missionaries. They were very grounded in the Lord and His grace, and very dependent on Him for the work. Very reliant through prayer and personal relationship with the Lord, and also just personal, like, okay, we need to step back and we need to take care of ourselves. This is an intense. So very balanced in a way that I don't see a lot of times in ministry. That was refreshing to see a healthy way to pour out, or to be poured out, but also to receive the Lord's sustaining power in such a demanding place. And then the last blessing for me would be having my two boys and seeing them work hard, not complaining, doing what was asked of them, and just really giving everything that they had. And then all of us bonding together on as a team. We would play games, and we did Mad Libs in the car on the way back, and everybody really loved my kids well. It was a sweet blessing for that. So they're going to come and share a little bit. Andrew, you come first.
He said he wanted to do a mime version. I didn't think it would work.
We're intrigued to see this. So go.
I'm not gonna do a mic thing, but I really like going to Mexico. It's cool. I got to meet a lot of people down there, see the culture, and if we ever get the chance, I'd like to go back. During the days, we got to do a lot of fun stuff for the work stuff. Like one day, there was a big brick wall, and we got to tear it down with sledgehammers. And I got to help replace the toilet and an AC unit and paint some stuff.
Scrub some algae, and scrub some algae.
Yeah, one day there was a giant tank, a water tank, and 1,000 gallons, and they drained the whole thing. And we got in there and climbed in and scrubbed the algae off the inside. It was like 115 degrees outside. It was like the sun in there, super hot. And it made, climbing out of that thing, it made like 115 degrees feel like 60 with how hot it was. I liked meeting all the work team there. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, overall the trip was really nice, and that's about all I have.
Very good.
Andrew said, I did tune up the AC and the water tank. But there are kids, for other kids there, got Samantha and Calder. And yeah, they were nice. I hung out with them some, and there were dogs, red and yellow. They're very sweet dogs, and yeah, everything else that I was gonna say was already said.
Did the dogs understand English or only Spanish?
You know, I asked, and the names were in English, so.
Alright, so I guess just a couple of work activities that I worked on was just largely handyman work. So installed a few shelves and replaced the toilet and mounted the fan and replaced doorknob, things like that. Did that all week. Some, I guess, meaningful things is that there was lots of prayer. There was lots of heat. It was really hot. I think the heat index was like 120 one day. It was, we were constantly, and you don't get AC until night, so I've never been so sticky in my life. And then, but another meaningful thing, it was just time to sit and think and write thoughts without distraction. There's no phone. You get, I mean, it was kind of a small compound, and with quite a few people. I can't imagine if the other churches showed up. I don't think there would have been any alone time because there were so many people. But so I was actually kind of thankful that we were able to kind of get away. I guess more specific to me is that working here, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that I have between parenting and tree shepherds and church and all the different things. And so anytime, a lot of you know, I had replaced my sewer recently, and that was a huge project. And so I was just really kind of burnt out on all the just working. And so I go there and I work, but I realize there's a big difference between working there and working here, in that it all comes down to like, I didn't mind it down there. It was the same exact stuff that I do here, but I didn't mind it. So I guess God just showed me that I'm really dependent on my own hands to get things done, and that responsibility. I have a lot of responsibility, and it's not my. I shouldn't feel that responsibility, because God cares for those who call upon Him. So, and then spending time in prayer and in the Bible help remind me of that. As far as the mission goes, I kind of echo what Lisa said. Just they set a great example of a godly way to live, in that it's not. Some of them said at one point that they're very task-oriented. That's their love language. But I didn't really see that. It was more, their focus was more on relationship with God, and then the tasks after that. And so it's just helpful to bring that back here, and not. I mean, the prayer chair was really meaningful. Just to take 30 minutes out of the middle of work. Middle of a task. It's super hard for me to do, just to stop, and be able to take that back to my own work. And seems like you're always praying. You pray at the beginning of the day, you pray in the middle of the day, you pray at meals, and pray. We did a devotional together. That was our own thing. So we prayed then too. So let's see. Yeah, if anybody's interested in going, I really enjoyed getting to know the group. I'm much more familiar with the Tar Pleas and the Gavin is Robert Clayton, so it's feeling closer bond with them. It was good to be in a different culture. Overall, I just came back feeling refreshed and very thankful for AC. So, thanks.
I did, kind of the, wow, a lot of people joined. Some of the things I did, there was one day that, so the school for the deaf that they operate, there's like a little courtyard in the middle that had some, like a little brick paved area. And I guess they had just been like a little bit mistakenly placed last time, so it was me and Lisa and a guy named Jeremy who we spent the morning and going into the afternoon just like pulling up all those bricks, kind of like evening the ground beneath and then placing them all again. And then other than that, just like painting trim and other, I definitely felt like I'm not doing the most work I could be doing this week. Anyway, as far as things I took from the week, I'd say a lot of them are based around perspective, both towards the future and where I'm at now and things like that. I was very grateful that they took our phones because in a lot of ways, I'm very, very poor at self-discipline. And so to have someone else physically take my phone and say, you can't have this, is very, very helpful for me. And it just gave me space to think about, I'm in a very big season of transition right now between no longer being with RUF and other things that are coming up in my life right now. And so it was good to be able to just like have time to really ponder those things and pray about those things without getting distractions from notifications about those things or all else. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Clayton. I just don't name, yes. But yeah, to just pray about those things and not be distracted by outside sources, and then, but in terms of like my present situation, like I mentioned, part of it was just recognizing, I'll put it that it's one thing to prayerfully consider how you feel led about immigration or the border crisis without having gone down there, but it's a very different thing to consider when you see the conditions that people like that are trying to get away from or that they're stuck in down there. And yeah, it's I still have kind of the same perspective I had before, but it's I feel like it's in, what's the word? I don't know. It definitely affected the way that I think about those things, just like having that image, and then conversely, it also kind of showed me the blessing that I have to be where I'm at. Specifically, if you don't know, I'm pursuing work with illustration and design right now, and it's something that I already knew, but I just had really emboldened that I get the choice to say I'm going to try and pursue that right now. I don't have to worry the way people down there have to worry about where's my next meal coming from, am I going to still have a house tomorrow, things like that. So yeah, I'd say if you want to grow in terms of your perspective of the life you've been given and the world that you're in and things like that, you should absolutely come next time we do this trip.
So I think I wanted to touch on just a couple of things. The first one was worship. I told you that we worshiped at Camino de Fe. The church is housed in the school. And just to give you a little sense of things, the school, where we stayed, there's a compound of three different buildings owned by Isaiah 55. And that's in that Kia Sudan community that the narrator talked about. The school is, I don't know, it's about a 15-minute drive. It's hard for me to tell the way we zigzag how far away, a couple of miles away at least, through the city in another neighborhood. And the church worship there. If you haven't had an opportunity to worship in another culture, in another language, find it. It is amazing to experience the sure knowledge that God is worshipped around the world, and that He's present around the world, and that He's working in that space. I didn't understand a lick of Spanish. Every once in a while I'd ask Sarah a question. They did project the lyrics to the songs on the screen. That helped, because if I can read it, then I can start to say, oh yeah, that word's hope, that word's peace, that's God, etc. And some of the songs were even familiar, so that was good. Reading the scriptures, I could open my Bible and read along with them and kind of make out what was going on. Sermon was from Zechariah. Have no idea what he was saying, other than we came back and heard did I say it right? Nehemiah, sorry, not Zechariah, from Nehemiah. And came back and we got a briefing of it, but Nehemiah chapter 1. And so it was just wonderful to be in that place and worship with not only the folks we went down, but with the folks that attended that church. There were probably, 30 maybe there. something
How
like
big
that.
a room, Robert?
About this big, right
Okay.
here, yeah. It was up in, again, the upper part of the school. So anyway, again, and if you have an opportunity to do that, I'd recommend it thoroughly. Another thing that was really neat was time. You guys talked about the cell phone thing. Just time for stories. Throughout the week, I think I not only got to know the group I went with better, but there were 4 college interns, 3 females and a male, that had all been there when they were younger and wanted to come back and work. There were the 2 ladies from Mexico, and then the staff, the ministry staff themselves. During meals and free time or working alongside, you had an opportunity just to kind of hear what was going on with them. And it's always so wonderful to hear how God has been faithful in the lives of other people. And so getting to share that, you only have a week, so you gotta be quick and you gotta be intentional about asking good questions and listening to them and trying to understand. And one of the ones that stood out to me was from the guy who founded it. The 2 founders were from this church in Montgomery, Alabama that I talked about. They founded it in 2006. His name was No-No. His wife's name was Kate. I think I heard the story about why it's called No-No, but I won't go into it now. He very, very soft-spoken man, has a history in commercial construction. But one of the things they do, he's obviously been there for 14, 17 years. One of the things they do is they force sabbaticals. And so among the time he had a sabbatical, one of the things they had him do is they give him a 12-foot long piece of paper and they eventually write out their timeline of their life. Everything that they can kind of remember, and they start to refine that. And this soft-spoken but pretty tough old guy teared up in my presence when he started thinking about how God had been faithful. He said, when you lay that out, it is amazing to see what God has done in your life. I'll give you a couple of examples. When they went down there in 2006 and they started the school, they went to the school's in this corner of a park, and they were looking for a building, and the city council and the mayor and the leaders said, we'll give you this building or let you use this building. I don't know if they own it now or not. And you know, as long as you're going to use it for the school for the deaf. So they had an anchor right at that point to be able to take care of and be able to teach and start their ministry. The other 3 buildings came along about 5 years later, and they used the drug war in 2008 and the cartel. God used them in order to give them those buildings. So the building that we were a part of, I think Ethan's group was actually helped pour the foundation for that many years ago. When the drug wars came along, there was a ministry that they had partnered with that said, this is getting a little too dangerous for us, and they left. And so they gave that space to Isaiah 55. And so they had that land to be able to build on and be able to increase their ministry. And that was where the mission was stored and where we stayed and where that courtyard was. There's several different things that make up that space. Across the street, I don't remember the year, but the cartel was in that area, and one of the cartel members was killed, and his wife moved back to the States and just abandoned this building across the street from them. They started to ask about that, and eventually the wife said, well, I'm not coming back. I'll just, I'll sell it to you and they sold it to them for a very low rate. I think they're still actually trying to work out the paperwork according to them as far as the titles on that. But they have this wonderful building that's their community center where they house the Bible study and the things for kids and teenagers and vacation Bible school and other things throughout the week. Down the street from that, about 2 lots over, is where the vocational center is. So it's where we stored all the tools and everything that we use, but they've got a full-fledged workshop, wood shop, and metal shop, I think, is there. Just about anything you can imagine. There's sewing upstairs, and that's where what they use to teach the know, not only deaf students as they grow up, but other community members and help train them. But that was owned by a cartel member and his wife, and they wanted to upgrade to another space in another part of the city where they, you know, wanted to live a little more lavishly. And so that space was given up, and they were able to adopt it and use it for that purpose. And so there were just things like that he brought up that were really amazing. I think one of the other things that stood out to me was there was a young lady named Abby. She is a teacher at the school, although what her job is to help teach adults. So the big thing is, if you have a deaf child, and I never really thought about this, how do you communicate with them? And we may have more resources here in the States than to help us with that, but there were very few down there. So you think about trying to love your child and communicate with them and not being able to because they can't hear you and develop that. This school's really making a significant difference there. So she does that, but where she stood out to me was Monday night as adult Bible study over the community center. So I went over there and watched that, and she was leading it. She has a background in education and theology, but more important than that, she has a passion for the people that she's serving. She was just given an overview of the Bible, and so I could kind of make out what was going on and had a handout, and she was reviewing what they did last week, talking about the New Testament, and as she was engaging with, there was maybe half a dozen, maybe a few more people than that, just the love that she had for them really came out. It was just inspiring to watch her work in that space. There was somebody started talking, they were at James, and I heard the word linga over and over, so that James is warning about the tongue. She kept asking questions, and she was very patient with that young lady. But they're absolutely making a difference in the community of Aquia-Amsterdam. That's where a lot of Haitian migrants have come, so it's really a changing group. I'll stop and say my final thing. I think one of the things I'm taking away is just thinking about how this applies to Denton Pres. I think Denton Pres and its worship, grow, and serve is a lot about equipping the saints. That Ephesians chapter 4. We left UNT and came here 3 years ago because of COVID. I don't think First Presbyterian or Denton Presbyterian wants this to be our permanent home. So as the session and others have been talking about, well, where's next? One of the things that keeps coming to my mind is, well, what's our ministry? What does God have us and want us to do in this city? Isaiah 55 is very clear about what they're doing in the community, in the way that they're outreaching and sharing the gospel, and the way that they do that with parts of the community. And you know, part of my prayer is that we would be that God would give us just as clear a vision for Denton. Even though we come from Corinth and Ponder and Flower Mound and Highland Village and Double Oak and everywhere else, what does God have us do in Denton the way Isaiah 55 is doing it in Reynosa? I'm sure it's different, but I hope we can find it and be faithful to it. So that's one of the things I'm taking away. I think it's the Gale.
Ask her to do that. Hi, I'm Matthew, if I haven't met you already. A couple of, maybe, we'll see how many anecdotes come to mind. One evening we were sitting down, they had a courtyard, their tables were painted this ugly orange, and the tables were painted this ugly bright red, and the reason why is because they said, well, when we were thinking about what we want to paint things, one thing that came to somebody's mind was, well, what's a color that shoos away flies? That flies don't like. There weren't many flies. So we were sitting in this courtyard, and there was kind of an awning. It was a little bit lower. It was probably, if I were there, I could probably touch it. And that was over us, and we were in the space with each other. It was probably evening, and I think at that specific moment, we were probably. It was after the work day, so we had enjoyed our chips and our guacamole. And I remember, Sarah, who was no, not Gracia. What was the name of the person that we met with over Skype? And is it Christy?
Oh, Christy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christy. Christy was one of the main people that, I don't know, was our main organizer, and so she was there, and we weren't talking with her, but I remember a moment where her face just lit up, and she ran over to the edge of the compound, the property, and you got to imagine this is like a giant cinder block wall. The places that aren't very high are barred. But on the outside, there was this business, I don't know what the business was, and she ran over and she yelled the name of one of the local people there. I can't remember his name, I wish I could. But the way that her face lit up and the way that, it was like a mother running over to see a son that had just arrived out of the blue. And that was a really big testimony to me, to see the way that those people understand that loving another person does not happen through quick exchanges or, apps or, that sort of thing. Sometimes, like as an American, I felt convicted on that trip of how I want results in my teaching with my students. I want to see them, I'm a band director. I want to see you march this way. I want to see you do it better, and I want to see it now. And I thought that was amazing to see because that was a relationship. That was a little glimpse into a window of a history between her and that young man. And that young man, they hugged each other through the bars. It was really amazing to see, and hearing Robert talk about what could a vision be for us here in Denton. I'm not really sure what that is, but if it's anything like them, it's going to be slow. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take time, and in the end, we may not fully see what that turns into, but I really hope that something like that happens. I think one more thing, and then I'm done. Whenever we went to the church service, everything was in Spanish, and I think that was a big eye-opener for me in the sense of sometimes in my head I say, oh, okay, we serve God. And I assume God is an English-speaking person.
From Denton.
And then I was like, okay, wait, hold on. So no, God is not just an English, God is the creator of language. And that was a practical, just a mind-blowing experience of, it is a gift for us to be able to speak and for me to say things and you to hear things and me to hear things. And it happens to be in English, but right now, I guess over many parts of the world, it's not in English. There's Spanish and all the whatever. If there are hundreds of countries and hundreds of languages, then God's bigger than what I see. So, it was. We could probably keep going, but for the sake of time, I'll send Sarah. Thank you.
So I'll speak it in English. But I guess I'll start with a couple of my favorite parts, and then I'll share some of the takeaways. So I guess my favorite parts of the week were, the work was good, but I think all the rest of it, getting to see all of those things that they were already doing kind of without us, was the really cool part. So I really enjoyed I think the worship service on Sunday was probably my favorite part, and then also the community outreaches that we got to attend throughout the week. I was very blessed. I had the chance to study Spanish, and so I was able to understand a little bit more. So that was, I think, an even deeper layer that it was cool. I get to experience that. But the adult Bible study on Monday night, the kids program on Tuesday afternoon, and then they have Club de Chicas or Club de Chicos, so Boys and Girls Club, and that's their middle school and high school age program, and they alternate each Wednesday, boys or girls. And so we got to see Club de Chicas, so Girls Club. So it was really neat to see just how they how they love on those in the community and provide teaching and activities for them. So those are probably my favorite parts of the week. But then in terms of some takeaways, in Jeremiah 29, there's the letter to the exiles, and there's a verse 7 of that has really stood out to me, which is, "But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare." And so that's just been a verse that's really resonated with me in thinking about like how do we engage with a broken world. And there's a lot of places, whether that's in your job, or whether that's in some sort of ministry or volunteering, or just whatever in your own relationships. Like how do we engage when there's so much brokenness and this place that we're in is not our true home? And so that's, I think, just been a really good guide for me. And Isaiah 55, I think the work that they're doing was a really good example of that. So in Psalm 46:10, it talks about be still and know that I'm God. Well, it's really hard to be still and know that God is God. I think it's easier to know that God is God and then try and act on all this stuff and be super motivated to do all these things, or it's easier to be still and not know that God is God and just sit back and be like, okay, well, everything's terrible, why try? But it's really hard to be still and know that He is God and then continue faithfully walking. And so it's really hard to act out of that stillness. But Isaiah 55, the organization did a really good job of exemplifying this. And so one of the things I feel like was a big takeaway for me was just seeing their example of acting in stillness and trusting in God to provide with patience and faith, and responding to the brokenness in the community that God has placed them in, knowing that it's a long-term process, and they're working towards long-term restoration and not just quick fixes. And so they do that as a ministry, as an organization, but I think this is a posture that we can take in any role that we're in, whether that is a ministry role or if that's a paid job or whatever, as any work that we're doing, because we're participating in God's work of restoring all of his creation. So I think in any of that work where we're working towards bringing about flourishing where there's destruction and joining in His work in that, I think that's a posture that we can take. And so I think that's just like at the Isaiah 55 passage at the end of it, talking about bringing life out of destruction and flourishing where there isn't. So that's, I guess, the biggest takeaway for me was just that example of how to do that. So it was a great experience. Thank you.
All right, we may not have time for questions, but we have food tonight, and so you can ask questions as you gather and maybe sit next to them, but I do want to show you a video they put together for us that I think captures the week pretty well, and it is 8 minutes long, so.
It's good.
It's really good.
Church they said they wanted to plant?
In the Achilles Cerdon neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it's in the
They want to,
surrounding area?
in that neighborhood that they have the community center is where they're hoping to, that turn into a.
So their church is not right there? It's
Correct.
Okay.
There we go. That was yellow.
This was Spanish night, so they taught us words.
You'll have to ask what that is later. That was Matt and Sarah's second wedding anniversary, by the way.
It's community outreach. This is at the school. All of this. Ethan's fast.
That's in real time.
It was about 100 degrees in that room.
Very good.
In prayer, I'll just say we're thankful for God's faithfulness. Let's go worship Him.